Hello again, everyone. Those of you who watch, anyway. I mean, my channel still isn't getting a lot of views. Don't expect it to. Don't really care. Um, but I want to talk to you guys today about survival horror. And because it is my favorite genre of video game, and because I need a new talking point, honestly. BioShock Infinite only goes so far. I really do believe that my first two videos explain it enough to sort of dispel any questions. I've kind of stopped responding to the comments because a lot of people, I mean, we tend to start talking in circles at a certain point. So, um, I've just saying, if you need an explanation, watch the first two videos. Hopefully, you get everything you need out of that. But today, I want to talk about survival horror. This is a genre that has been on the decline for years, and I think that it is the best genre. I mean, myself, I love tense moments. I love getting into my game, and I really put myself in the shoes of the player, of the character when I'm there. Like, I remember when I used to play Rainbow Six online. I would get freak out. I would scream and like every time like somebody was busting in the door and a grenade would launch. I'd see half my team die. My heart would start racing. Right, I get into my games, which is why I love survival horror. And it is a genre on the decline. It's one that's hasn't had a lot of, population in terms of games recently. We had Dead Space, but that's over now. Um, Resident Evil stopped being horror a long time ago. We had Slender for a time. By the way, I have my talking points here, so if you wonder why I'm looking down, had Slender, but the new one is just more of the same. We had Amnesia, and you've got the new one coming out, and mm, eh, I was never a big fan of Amnesia, even as a survival horror guy. But I'll talk about that later. Silent Hill hasn't been good in a few years. Fatal Frame just kind of stopped. We got like a DS version, but I mean, was that really? It's just Dead Space and Dead Space 2 were like the last really good survival horror games. So first I want to talk about what is effective horror. What is a good survival horror game? What makes one? The first off, and I think the one that a lot of people will agree with, especially fans of like the older Resident Evils and like Clock Tower and all those games, especially the old Silent Hills. Bad controls. Now here's the trick. Bad controls is not what makes good horror. We can have good horror with good controls. I mean, look at the first Dead Space. The controls were tight. The atmosphere was good. But what you have is what I believe to be rule number one of horror: a feeling of helplessness, a sense that you cannot overcome the challenge when confronted with it directly. Um, if we look at Resident Evil, part of that feeling of helplessness was because the enemies took a good couple shots to bring down, and you only had a few bullets at any point in the game. As a newbie player, I'm not talking about you Resident Evil experts that have run through the game 100 times, like, well, me. Um, but that first time, or maybe the second time, because it's still scary. Then you still have trouble with the game. When you're playing through it, if you are confronted with like three zombies at a time, your immediate sense is like, how am I going to beat this? How am I going to win? Or you fight a new, bigger creature like a boss monster. You're like, there's no way I can beat this. I can barely gun down a zombie or two. Um, we see the same thing in Amnesia. You first get into the basement with the water and the invisible creature that will always kill you if it catches you. This is another feeling of helplessness. You cannot fight back. You cannot overcome the challenge when confronting it directly, and that's really important for horror. Dead Space less so, but that lends itself more to the second point, which I'll be getting to in a little bit. Fatal Frame, great horror series. I love the second one. Second Fatal Frame is excellent. What do? They make you kill ghosts with a camera. With a camera. it's awesome. You can't even attack the ghosts. They literally not only make you like not attack the ghosts, you have to take pictures of them to get them to go away, but they make you confront them. The only way to get rid of the scary ghost is to look straight at the scary ghost. And you get a better hit and you get more health off the ghost if it gets closer to you. So the idea is you not only have to face your fear, but you can't really truly fight back against it. That's what makes Fatal Frame such a great horror game. Silent Hill, Dead Space, they kind of fall into a different category, but also Slender, which came out. Slender is good for the first couple of times you play it because you can't do anything to fight back against this guy. The only thing that you can do is make yourself more helpless. Use less flashlight, walk slower, and when you tread like that, when you do those things, you invite him into your personal space, and you can't fight him directly, so it's a feeling of helplessness. It's great. When they make the player feel helpless, it gets taxing on you. It's scary. The second major thing, a sense of mystery. The scariest thing to us is something that we don't know a lot about. This is the main reason why old scary games are no longer scary. The fact that Resident Evil 4, 5, and 6 aren't scary has absolutely nothing to do with the fact that they've changed the controls and they've changed the sense of action from that sort of Sherman tank control to the, over-the-shoulder pat-pat. It has everything to do with the fact that we've played these games hundreds of times by this point. I mean, we know what to expect. Oh, look, zombies. Oh, look, things that can jump and scratch me. Oh, look, like a big mutated monster. It's not scary anymore. But the first Resident Evil, the only scary Resident Evil, you didn't know what to expect when you went into the attic and there was a giant snake. Ah, my God, what the hell is that? And then the shark, which was weird, but you saw the tyrant, or you saw like the one zombie just feeding on the other one. You had no way to fight back and you had to run away. Like that helplessness and that sense of I have no idea what's going on. By the time we've moved forward enough in Resident Evil, we know all about it. Like, okay, here's Umbrella Corporation, here's Wesker, we'll talk about the mansion and then the evil plot behind it. Ooh, pharmaceutical companies. Amnesia does a great one because they let your imagination fill in the blanks for what that monster actually is. You don't know what it is. You never know what it is. You just know that you need to get away. Slender, not so much. Slender feasts on your unknown sense in the way that you never know when he's going to pop up. Once he's up, if you've like grown accustomed to seeing him, then it's not a big deal, which is why Slender ultimately fails as a horror game. Silent Hill is a huge one for fear of the unknown. They throw these grotesque monsters that they never really address you. They just sort of mindlessly wander and kill. So your whole thing is, as you see them butchering other things, as you see these creatures and you become aware of what they do, you just want to avoid them because you know you might die. And because of that feeling of helplessness, there's a good chance that it'll happen. Again, Fatal Frame, they put like a whole mystical backstory behind it. Why are there ghosts? Who are these ghosts? What's causing this? And you really think you're fighting back against the source. But what Silent Hill 2 does beautifully is they just keep sending you deeper and deeper down the rabbit hole. Literally, you are jumping down holes as the game gets further and further. But Silent Hill 2 that's like a whole hour-long video, but I wouldn't do that to you guys. And it's what Dead Space does really well. Dead Space throws these creatures at you. They throw this menace that just seems to be unstoppable. Everywhere you go, things are getting worse. Like, there's just human growth around, and there's these giant, almost invincible creatures that you have to cut off all their limbs so they can't attack you. It's the only way to kill them. But again, once you play a horror game, 2 or 3 times, it's not scary anymore. Resident Evil 2 was not scary in any capacity, none whatsoever. What do they do, like right from the get-go? They throw about 50 freaking zombies at you. It's ridiculous, okay? Good horror does not have sequels. That's it. And I mean, it's kind of contradictory to the fact that I think Silent Hill 2 is the greatest horror game ever made. Um, but Silent Hill, again, stopped being scary right around 3 and 4. I mean, you're good for like 1, maybe 2 games. And then after that, cut it off. Go to a new thing, write a new story. I mean, Dead Space 1 was great. 2 was pretty good. 3, as far as a game, fun. As far as horror, womp womp. Not scary. Resident Evil 1, the GameCube remake, is like my 3rd favorite game of all time. It's just excellent. I mean, even though I'd played the game on PlayStation 1, playing it on GameCube and seeing all of the horror become more realistic with the new graphics sort of brought back that sense of the unknown, because I didn't know how gruesome the things I was about to see were. Amnesia I never liked. Um, Amnesia really does work as a horror game. I know I'm in a very vocal minority when it comes to Amnesia not being a great horror game, but my problem is that Amnesia isn't fun. I mean, I feel like if I don't jog to the next torch fast enough, my screen will get too blurry to understand what's going on, and then between that and running away from invisible or sometimes visible monsters, which is the really fun part of the game, I'm normally trapped in a shadow, so like my screen's getting all wibbly wobbly, and then I can't see, and if I can't see, yeah, how am I supposed to be afraid? Because I have no idea what's going on. And that's why I don't like Amnesia. I've never managed to finish the game. I'll play it for like 2 or 3 hours, and I'll just be, screw it. Um, Slender, I played it for 5 minutes. Was like terrified for the first 3, and after 5 minutes, like, meh, meh. Silent Hill 2, greatest horror game ever. And I'll follow that up with Resident Evil GameCube remake, and then finally third best would probably be Fatal Frame 2. Fatal Frame 2, there's the 3 games that you need to play right now if you never have. If you have a Wii, you can play the GameCube remake of Resident Evil on the Wii. If you have an Xbox 360, Fatal Frame 2 is compatible with it. Go on half.com, get a copy for like $1.50, you'll be good to go. Silent Hill 2, they actually re-released the Silent Hill HD collection. You have no excuse not to play these games. These are great horror games. So where should survival horror go from here? First off, I think they need to stop making Resident Evil everything. Movies, games, stop. Resident Evil is so dead. It's so dead. There is no fear in it anymore. There's no terror. There's tension, but there's no terror, which is kind of what you rely on for a horror game. Same for Dead Space. Especially, did you guys play Dead Space 3? Did you play it? Holy smokes! They wrote themselves into a vicious, vicious corner. Could there even be a Dead Space 4? Probably, because money. But as of right now, I have no idea where it would go. I mean, if you haven't seen the ending of Dead Space 3 Awakened, the DLC, I suggest you skip ahead about 15 seconds from here. But, spoiler alert. I'll wait. Give it some buffer. Okay, everybody seems like they're dead. Okay, so, yeah, Amnesia, they came out with a new one. Supposedly it's... I'm not sure how to feel about it, because I never liked the first one. Slender, the new one, is supposed to be, like a high-res version of the first one, which is good for 5 minutes. Totally not worth the money. Silent Hill stopped being good. I mean, I personally can play the Silent Hill games, but that's not to say that they're great. The last one I played was Homecoming, which was a movie or a game based on a movie based on a game. It starts getting loopy. I like what they do with the whole world rusting away. Like if they could do that in Silent Hill 2, like just go back and touch it up and make it prettier. Like it's a psychological just mind rape. Fatal Frame, they just stopped, and thank God they stopped, because I would hate for Fatal Frame to be ruined in my mind, because if they kept on, going. So where horror needs to go from here is we need a new IP with hopefully a new it can be an old creature, it can be a new creature. The creature doesn't matter. Just don't tell us a lot about him. And there just have to be something new, something that we as gamers don't know, because we know zombies and we know vampires and we know werewolves and we know some monsters, which is why monsters are great for horror. Because you can just make new monsters with terrifying abilities and terrifying powers, and who's gonna who's gonna know exactly what's going on there? Like, I could invent a monster right now that nobody's ever heard of. I mean, it might not be scary, but I could. And could you imagine if they got like Guillermo del Toro? Wow, I just botched his name. To do like a monster design with like some really good writers behind it to give the monster just some like powers or some abilities. Just give it some really good backstory. Shroud it all in mystery. Alan Wake. Alan Wake was awesome. I had no idea what was going on in Alan Wake. Just shadow creatures. But remember, the first like 2 hours of Alan Wake were great for horror. And then as you move on and you become more empowered, you lose that sense of helplessness, and you lose that mystery because you're just kind of fighting these shadow creatures. Alan Wake sort of tapered off at the end, horror-wise. It's still a great game. So we need games to not necessarily give us bad controls, but take away our power as gamers. Don't give us a ton of weapons. Give us like a few ineffective weapons. Or be like Fatal Frame. Don't give us a weapon at all. Give us a camera. Give us a new monster. Give us a new baddie to fight. And don't tell us anything about him. Just like nothing. Like, you can reveal him as the game goes on so we can understand him. But what I really do love about a good horror game is that it keeps you tense all the way to the end. Resident Evil constantly threw new baddies at us until the very end when we had to confront the ultimate baddie, and then you blow them away with a rocket launcher. The end is kind of meh, but still it's like a struggle to survive, and that's what it should be. It should be a struggle to survive against an enemy that exists within the unknown, and that's good horror. I mean, I would love to hear what you guys think about horror games. I would love to hear you guys convince me to play all the way through Amnesia, because I own it. I don't care. Please leave some comments below, and really, I'm up for requests. Tell me what you want to see from me. This is like my own sort of fill in the blank. I'd like to release a video a week or so, maybe more. Just tell me what you guys want to hear. And yeah, thanks for watching. Subscribe if you like. Don't if you don't. I don't care. Peace.